Daniel, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast tonight.
Thank you so much for the invite. Your show is awesome. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to getting you on here and having this conversation. But really quick, man, I just want to check in with you really quick. How are you and the family holding up? I know you had to do some evacuation when we had the hurricanes blow through recently.
Yeah, it was something else with the North Carolina people not getting a warning and seeing what happened with them. For us, things are just things, and we decided to just jet and we went to Pensacola. But I think with everyone's prayers and energy going towards it, it just basically just dissipated. So we're happy about that.
Yeah, guys, that was definitely a pretty wild month there. You know, everything from the hurricane going through the Carolinas, and then right away, just right off the heels of that, here comes another one, another powerful one heading straight to
Yeah,
Florida. And you all had just literally moved into a new house though, and it was like right in the hurricane's path, wasn't it?
less than a month. So it had a chance to go directly towards where we live in Naples, or it would have went towards Tampa, which went towards Tampa. But just probably 15, 20 minutes north of us, there was a pretty tough tornado. Um, but we're just happy that things worked out. You know, we had the whole house that we just decorated and got it all unpacked. We had the couch on top of the dinner table. We had all of our belongings upstairs, um, and just realized, like, you know what, we might be coming home to a house that's flooded. So um, everything was fine. It was good. There's perfect drainage here in this planned community, so we're good.
Now, are you originally from Florida? Is hurricanes just something that you're kind of used to? It just kind of comes with the territory?
No, I'm from Connecticut, so I grew up in the snow. Then went to college in New Hampshire, did my undergrad in New Hampshire, um, played hockey all over the country. Um, but then moved down to Florida in 2015 when shortly after my firstborn was around, and we decided to have our children out in the sun, rather than bundled up in hoodies and hiding our bodies in the snow and all that stuff with the cloudy skies. So we've been down here since 2015.
And do you ever make it back up to New England at all? Do you still have family up that way or anything?
We have family up there, but we have not been up there, really since, maybe once or twice for events or something, but, it's not appealing to us to go back into the snow, but we definitely miss seeing the trees and how gorgeous it was up there. And, you know, the fall is just gorgeous in Connecticut and, upstate New Hampshire. So those are beautiful times over there. Great state. But for Florida, we like to be warm. We like to go to the beach.
Now, for the state of Connecticut, what would you say you like best about that state? And the reason why I ask is because I've been all over the country, Daniel. However, Connecticut is one of only 8 states that I have left to go to make it to all 50. So I guess I'm trying to get some intel on it here by asking. So, about the state do you think you like the best?
So what I love about my town, Hamden, Connecticut, is that it was very diverse. As a half black, half Puerto Rican gentleman playing ice hockey and football, and baseball, to be honest, it was great to have our school like pretty much equal in all different levels of races. So it was pretty cool. Quinnipiac, Sleeping Giant, it's just gorgeous. It's just one little mountain in town. It's super nice, but if when you cross the border from New York to Connecticut, it just kind of goes from a busy interstate to like a 2-lane Wilbercross Parkway, and it's just a gorgeous drive of a 2-lane road all the way through to Massachusetts, basically to 95 anyways. Um, Southern Connecticut could be a little busy, but the rest of Connecticut is absolutely gorgeous. So like the Mohegan Sun area, that casino area has a beautiful museum. It's just gorgeous. It's just a whole different type of world out there, very rural. And you wouldn't think Connecticut's like that. So it's pretty cool. And then you jump into the Cape of Massachusetts, and before you know it, you're in the city of Boston. And Rhode Island's on the right over there. But then you get back to New Hampshire and it gets slows down again to Maine and all that stuff. So been up and down a million times because I grew up in Connecticut, so I was always driving back and forth 2.5 hours from college to my parents and back and forth. So it was a really frequent drive for me.
Yeah, I think at some point in time, I'm probably just going to get a plane into Boston, rent a car, and just do one big loop and get all six of those states because it's actually all six
Yeah,
of those New England states that I still have yet to go. Everything
they're
east
all
of
really
New
similar.
York.
Yeah, they're all really similar. I mean, Pennsylvania, um, New York, obviously Western New York is a little different. Upstate New York is different, but you have to see the city. You got to go Canal Street, you got to go to Times Square, you got to go to Boston, Quincy Market, all that stuff. The North End, the Italian festival is really huge, so it's good stuff out there.
Right on. So, kind of going back a little bit here, you just brought up that you grew up playing ice hockey. How'd you kind of sort of find your way into that sport? Because, being kind of now more of a hybrid athlete, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on in this conversation. I'm sure there's probably other sports that you probably could have gone into and probably been pretty successful with. So, what was it about ice hockey that made you kind of focus in on that specifically?
I was just a kid that couldn't stand still. Full of energy, just always wanted to play. Not really interested in learning. So I always joke around. My third grade teacher would never believe I had a master's degree or run my own business. But I just never want. I just school didn't appeal to me. But my parents had an apartment. They lived in Queens and Brooklyn area of New York. And when I was born, they moved to Connecticut, and our apartment was literally right next to the hockey rink. And they were new to town. They didn't know anything around in Hamden, Connecticut. And my mom saw a bunch of kids, and I get her spontaneousness from me. I mean, from her. And, she saw a bunch of kids at that place, and she said, honey, let's just bring them over there and see what this is about. And before you know it, they put me on skates at 3.5 years old. And I was pushing a little old school metal chair. If you can remember growing up, those little brown old chairs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was pushing those, and they gave me a stick, and I got a jersey. And before you know it, I was in the clinic. So that's how it started. And yeah, I played football. I was really good at it, but it was something about just where everyone assumed that I played football or basketball. I just want to do something different, and I'm glad that I did.
And how old were you again when you started playing?
3.5.
Three and a half.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I don't remember much, but I remember that.
well, I mean, it's interesting how opportunity just kind of presents itself that way. Folks just moving to the new town, they got their young
Yeah.
son, and then here is, a physical outlet for him to take part in too. And I feel like that's kind of the case with young boys. At least I observe this with. My nephew, and I also have a couple of other, young kids in my life from some close friends and everything like that. And they do have the hardest time of sitting still compared to like my nieces and
Yeah.
the young girls as well. And I think that's just innately how boys are built is just
Yeah.
sitting down for 8 hours a day. I don't think we're meant to do that. If you look on our past, like I mentioned, I'm an archaeologist. Is like men were out hunting, they were out fighting, they were out exploring, they were out building. So it's just it's kind of counterintuitive to a degree, I would say, just to sit down for 8 hours a day. It's really hard for boys
I
to pull
know.
that off.
And right when I got off the bus, I was right on my red bike, and I was exploring, like you just mentioned. And my parents didn't have a tight leash on me because I really wasn't a misbehaving child. I just wanted to move my body, and I'd ride my bike fast as I can down hills, which is kind of crazy. But I went as fast as I could, and I was good at it. And I would just ride my bike everywhere, all the way down to the little mini market that was like 4 hours, I mean 5 miles away. And I drove. My parents said, "Don't go to the waterfall," but I went all the way to the waterfall. So it's just it's good to explore on your own.
Yeah, of course, you and I are about the same age, and we grew up in the era of analog, didn't we? I mean, we grew up also in the era of Nintendo, but that was kind of
Later.
sort of like, yeah, few and far between, though. But, in our youth, we didn't have social media, we didn't have super fast internet, we didn't have tablets in our hands or anything like that. It's just,
Yeah.
in order for us to kind of entertain ourselves, and again, just keep on moving, we really just had to like go outside. My parents, they were the type that just said, all right, y'all just like go out and play, put the video game controllers down. Your cousins are over, go play. Don't come back till it's dark. That's when dinner will be ready.
Yeah,
But totally different now. And so
it
I just
is.
kind of touching on that, now it's just, you being a father yourself now. Is just how do you kind of sort of replicate that with your children? Because I'm sure you're trying to hopefully maybe to get your kids to utilize their imagination in order to play, kind of similar to what we did
Yeah.
growing up. Because that was, I think, pretty big with our own development, if I do say.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, all I wanted to do was just move my body, like you said, and I would go to the park, create games, and find kids to play with. I'd knock on doors. Um, Anything I can do. If there was a rock and a stick, I created some kind of game out of it. And I would change rules mid game. It's pretty funny. But yeah, my kids, we used to, I have three daughters. They're homeschooled, so we're not really into the traditional way of life where parents are using the screens to babysit their children, basically, and you don't know what they're consuming. I know that when we traveled across the country in RV and stuff like that, like we we did have the kids in the watching the screen time a lot and this and that, and we noticed their behavior change of the way they behaved, how they were just sitting there consuming and not actually doing. Um, so now we have this like little TV in this big house, and we don't really watch it. We maybe have it on for a show maybe twice a week, and then when we listen to music on Spotify, I will actually put like a towel over it just to eliminate the blue light of it. Um, and we go to the library. We come back with three huge bags from like Trader Joe's bags that are huge, and just fill them up. And the kids just literally read most of the day. And then when they know when the kids are out of school at 4, they know it's time to play. So I'll do a workout in the garage while they play, and I can kind of just watch them, or we'll just coordinate with the kids with the other parents and just socialize. But yeah, we they still move their body. I run a roller hockey homeschool clinic every Wednesday. Tomorrow morning we'll be doing that again. I coach that, so I used to be a coach. They move their body in that, and they're just that's just what comes down. I mean, in the backyard when we're outside, we're making sure that they're outside. We're making sure that we have this slider all the way open so the sunlight can come in and they can hang out here in the patio and play with sand or do some kind of homeschool project. So we're a little different, but there are some neighbors that we have gone to their house and they're literally all 4 kids screen in front of them. Another one's playing video games. They're watching some inappropriate movie. They shouldn't be, but the parents are able to do whatever they want to do because the kids are content. So I think a lot of parents are not able to really know their kids or are not able to have the ability to behave, like teach their kids how to be respectful humans because they're at school most of the day. So when they're home, they're content with watching screen time. So there's neighbors in this neighborhood that are kind of like they're messaging the group like, I don't know what we're gonna do with the hurricane because now like everyone's here and they don't know how to like interact with their own children and husband because you know what I mean? They're not used to seeing them on a regular basis. But we see our kids every day, and I'm blessed to have my company to be able to work for an hour and just go downstairs, get some water, and kiss my kids, or see my kids, have a conversation with my wife, head back upstairs, and do it again. So yeah, we're a little different.
Yeah, actually, my bachelor's degree was in elementary education before I transitioned into archaeology for my master's. And of course, I went through the whole ringer, done student teaching for fourth grade, and
Nice.
and then also did a lot of substitute teaching here and there. And focus amongst a lot of the students that I taught was kind of a troublesome thing. And then I guess it's like, can I really be surprised though that they would have a hard time focusing, sitting in the class, reading book when they're so used to just looking at a screen most of the time? Like
Yep.
you said, they go home, they're on tablets, they're on laptops, they're on their smartphones and everything like that. And it's just like, they're so used to like that dopamine so early on in their formative years that is like, is it any wonder that they have such a hard time focusing when they're sitting
Yeah.
in a classroom and they got to read through a textbook?
Yeah.
It's just, I
We've
mean,
seen it. There's
yeah.
kind of just a zombie, right? So it's like, and that's what it is. We're teaching our kids to be little entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you a little story of what my oldest is doing right now, which is amazing. But before that, like literally, my oldest would just want to watch shows nonstop, and they were like learning shows, but it didn't matter. They were to her, it was just screen time where you just sit there and you just consume. But life is about doing. life is about taking life in your own hands and working darn hard to get what you want. And when you're just sitting there and consuming, you're assuming that, okay, my parents are going to feed me today, or no, I'm going to have clothes on my back. No, you have to work hard for what you want to succeed. And that's the biggest change I've seen out of my oldest with taking away the screen time. Um, she's selling bracelets at roller hockey games. She came home at $91 last week.
Nice.
And then we taught her to buy her first supply on Amazon and use that money towards supply and teach her profit and loss it's like it's so cool. It's fantastic. So she's starting to do that. My middle child's like, maybe I'll sell cookies, or you know what I mean? So we're growing little entrepreneurs because I have a master's degree, undergrad. I've done it all. Do I think I can start my physician recruiting company without my degree? Yes. I think if she wants to be a veterinarian or a doctor or something like that, yeah, hell yeah, go to school. But if you're, if you're just gonna get a business degree or something, just learn from the best. Like take courses from Grant Cardone or other people out there that are doing it. And I think if I could do it all over again, if I could be less reliable on my parents and actually learn how to survive on my own or buy my own first car or something like that, I think it would teach me a little bit more about entrepreneurship a little earlier in life. But that's we're just making little entrepreneurs, and it's pretty cool.
That's an interesting point. When you're talking about, teaching your kids, who to look towards if they're trying to if they want to learn about something specific. I feel like in this day and age, or maybe it's always been like this. I don't know. Maybe I see it more so now than I have before, though, is that we put a lot of emphasis on titles and like acronyms next to people's names. But however, I feel like I would always go over someone with like the real world experience, like you described, versus anything else. It's like I would
Yeah,
rather take marriage advice from the grandpa who's been married for 40 years happily versus like a licensed marriage counselor who's not married themselves, right?
exactly.
Or it's
Yeah,
like, and I would rather learn from the serial entrepreneur who's run successful businesses versus the business professor at university who doesn't own a business him or herself, right? So,
exactly.
so I think it's like we put so much emphasis on all these like accolades and pieces of
Yeah.
paper that people have, and like I said, acronyms next to their name versus like actual real world of experience. So I like that you're doing that with your kids, though, is like kind of giving them that direction as to where they can go and get information from.
But school is important though too, because the one thing I took out of school in college, my undergrad, is that I at the first time in my life I was able to juggle efficiently, even though I was drinking like a fish, even though I was staying up late, waking up early. I still was on the varsity hockey team. I made the tennis team. I played on every intramural team, and we were like champions like 6 times for soccer, volleyball, and whatever. So like versatile, right? So it's like and I was able to volunteer for the pro hockey games to do this and marketing and I was a mascot handler. And like you're able to just juggle it, right? In 5 classes. And be on time for your classes, you know what I mean? Or wake up early and study from 4 a.m. till 8 a.m. That test happens. You're just cramming it in. Like that's the thing that I is positive about school that I like is the adversity of it, knowing that you are able to do it all. Um, I just think for example, I ran the track at the middle school down the street here, and I was looking for a bathroom. I found a bathroom in the back, and then um yeah, I was just looking around like, man, this place looks like a jail. Like it really does. It's like we were brought up in this jail-like facilities. Um, and then we go to little small cubicles in these jail-like buildings. And it's just like that's not what life's all about. We should be in the sunshine, we should be outside more. I'm doing a lot of research on circadian rhythm and sunlight healing and the fact that the best time to get sun is when? To 9 to 5. That's when we're all working,
Hmm. Right.
and every dad, every man out there is trying to wake up at 4 a.m. and try to stay a little later to do extra work. And then we only get 4.5 hours. And I was one of those guys. Um, and I was just way more productive once I decided to get more sleep. So
Yeah, it's interesting with the circadian rhythm. Again, in this day and age, putting my archaeology hat on here is
yeah,
just what did our ancient ancestors do when it got dark? Well,
sleep.
they went to bed because
Yeah,
the light of their campfire can only extend so far, and it's really kind of hard to do any other work when you're only trying to light up the night with just your fire. So it's just and you can only talk around the fire with other tribes members for so long before you just decide to like go to bed. But now it's just Thomas Edison obviously gave us this brilliant invention that we called the light bulb, but there is some negative effects to that though, because now we're staying up later than we've ever been,
watching
and like
Netflix.
yeah, and exactly, and Netflix literally said that their greatest competitor is people's sleep. So there's so much that's kind of I don't know if I want to say working against us necessarily, but there definitely are a lot of barriers for us getting like a proper sleep. And I would dare say I don't think we've ever had a more sleep deprived society than we do now.
Yeah, and I think we're all being manipulated and controlled for people's gain, financial gain. If you think about IKEA, if you think about casinos, they're all indoors. There's no windows. They all have bright, bright lights, and all that sends dopamine to the brain, keeps you awake. So it's like all this research that I'm learning from Dr. Alexis Cohen and Dr. Jack Cruz. It's just it's writings on the wall. It's just in Halloween for trick or treating, I saw guys with like Halloween costumes with that lights around your face. Like anything past, sunset, like you shouldn't have any bright lights. So I have these glasses on and my screen is literally red. Um, I only see like your eyes are white and your shirt's white, your hair is white. So it's like, it's seriously so important. And I've learned so much about it just staring at my screen every day and having a low vitamin D level, that's improving. Um, it's vitamin D is everything. It's a source of like everything, like testosterone, like energy, your attitude, your bones, your health, your cartilage, all that stuff. It's remarkable. It's crazy.
Well, yes, and so we definitely do need to get out in the sun more and get that vitamin D intake naturally. And then, of
Yeah.
course, just as we started off this conversation with, just get out and move. And I just told you that I just came back from Romania a couple of days ago, and I observe this every single time I go through an airport, Daniel, is that if there's ever like an escalator or an elevator next to a flight of stairs, everyone's lining up for the escalator or the elevator and the stairs are completely empty.
Yeah.
So I always, and especially it's like that when I go through the gate and then I got to get up to the customs booth so that way I could get through customs. So I just try to make a mad dash up the stairs while everyone's just standing on the escalator, so I could
Yeah.
try to beat them to passport control first because
Right.
those lines get long. But it seems like so many people nowadays are actively trying to be inactive. Like so, they'll take
Yeah.
escalators and elevators. They'll drive around the parking lot for ages trying to find a spot that's closer to the store.
Yeah.
Or if they're at like a strip mall, if they're in a store on one side and they want to go to a store to the other side, they're going to get in their car and they're going to drive to the other side rather than just taking the sidewalk to go to that store. So
Yeah.
it just seems like, yeah, we're actively trying to be inactive, it seems.
It's a life of convenience. Amazon comes in a day. Um, it's people, if they get sick, they have like literally like, oh, my shoulder doesn't feel right. Let me call my doctor. My doctor will get prescribe them something and make money off of that. And it's just like we all looking for the pill for the something to fix our bodies, but no one's realizing that you're feeding your body with unknown chemicals that are causing other future things to happen. So like in our house, since we RV'd across the world, we didn't have any across the world, across the country. We don't have aspirin, we don't have Tylenol, we have no pills in this house unless it's like things like Shilajit or glutathione, like anything that's super healthy. Other than that, we don't have pills for pain stuff. It's icing it, sleeping, and CBD maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you're right. It just seems like there's a pill for everything nowadays where it says, "Oh, I got a headache. I might as well take a Tylenol." I'm like, "Well, how much water have you taken today? Have you had
yeah,
any salt at all? How about some electrolytes? Have you had
yeah,
any of that? Are you dehydrated?" So it's just
exactly.
like, do we look at any of those solutions at all first, like just general
Yeah.
lifestyle actions, but it's always just like, oh, we got a pill for that
Yeah.
though.
Well, that's the thing. Like I heard a great speaker say, like raise your arm, right? Raise your arm, and then the entire people are like this, right? And then he's like, well, raise it higher, and everyone like this was like, well, why didn't you do that the first time, right? It's like everyone's not working at their full potential. They don't know their full potential because they're so conditioned to being comfortable. And that's why you're aligned with me where doing something hard every single day is so important. No, we don't want to flip tires. We don't want to go for an hour and a half run. We don't. But you know what? Because everyone in the world or everyone in the street is sleeping at 5 a.m. when I'm running for an hour and a half, that's why I'm doing it. Because everyone's sleeping and they're comfortable and I want to get better than yesterday. That's the whole purpose. So it's just me against me. But the fact that no one else is around, like when I see another runner, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, good job. Like that's what it's all about. And I think we all got to do something just a little bit hard, and it doesn't have to be flipping a heavy tire. It's just maybe holding a door for someone every single time you go to the store. Anything that's can make the world a better place, whatever. We're just getting too comfortable in this world, and a lot of men are getting too comfortable. Your wife wants a man that makes her feel protected and secure, and someone that knows if someone breaks through that wall, they're going to do whatever they can to protect their family. Um, so yeah, that's world change these days.
Yeah, definitely. We do have it so good right now. And again, going back to our ancient ancestors, it's just that they were strong and tough out of sheer necessity. It's like
Yeah,
if they don't go out there and successfully kill an animal, their family doesn't eat. If
yeah,
they don't go and fight off that invading horde, terrible things are going to happen to their family. It's like
exactly.
if they don't build that house strong enough, the next rain's going to just wash it all away, and their family's going to be left
Yeah,
without shelter and protection. So, but now it's just we have it so good to the point now where a lot of men, since we're kind of talking about men here, they can kind of outsource a lot of these things like to other men, which is kind of sad if I do say so. Like there was
yeah.
this photo that I saw, and I don't know the whole context of this photo. Maybe you might have seen it as well, where it was like a flooded street, and there was like a man that was holding that he was wading through the water. He was wearing like camis, so he looked like he might have been a soldier or an operator or something like that. He's holding this Asian woman and her
Oh, I
child
think I
like
saw that.
in his
Yeah,
arms, wading through the water. And then just a little bit above him was a man, an Asian man that was pudgy and chubby, like carrying shoes. And so I'm thinking to myself, so this guy, and maybe, like I said, I don't know the whole context. I don't know if that was the woman's husband or if he was just a
yeah,
man that happened to be there. But let's just say if he was that woman's husband, it's just he couldn't physically carry his wife and child out of that dangerous situation. He had
yeah.
to rely on a different man to do that. And maybe I'm just being a little bit too brash here, Daniel, but I feel like if I have to outsource the protection of my loved ones to other men, then I'm not doing enough. I'm failing as a man, if you ask me.
I yeah, that fires me up. I mean, first of all, if you can't pick up your wife, then you're not leading your family by example. Because your kids are going to be eating what you eat, and your wife's going to be cooking what you want to eat. Um, So the whole point of us all is to live healthy as long as possible, not just enjoying things for the 5 inches in our mouth, and then the rest of it is terrible hell through the all the 8 feet of whatever that is, all the colon and all that stuff, and stomach, kidney, like you're putting your body through hell to eat shit. But to be honest, like you should if you can't take care of yourself and you can't pick up your wife, then that's a huge red flag. That means your kids feel insecure. They don't feel safe. Your wife doesn't feel safe. And that's just not a good way to live, to be honest. Got to do something about it. If you can't respect the man in the mirror, that's the first step. You got to look yourself in the mirror. And if you can't like take your clothes off and look at yourself in the mirror and respect yourself, You have two choices: get worse or get better. The world is yours. And how are you leading by example to your kids at the same time? And if you're not even a father, how are you leading example to other kids that you may be coaching? Or it's tough to see a coach that's just like monstrous and they're yelling at kids to work hard. I've seen that in my daughter's like soccer. If you want to be a leader, you got to lead yourself.
Exactly. And physical fitness is a big way because let's be real. It's just I feel like there's just a certain amount of respect that people just innately will show more towards someone who is physically fit versus someone who's not. And I feel like this is probably even done at like a subconscious level too. It's just like I don't think it's just I think those who are physically fit are just like spoken to differently than those who are not. Maybe I'm crazy, but at least I certainly observe
Yeah,
that in myself for sure.
I believe it. I'll meet someone for the first, another man for the first time who's not in shape, and the first thing they're doing is looking at my arms or something like that. And like, it's not about aesthetics. Like, it's not about that. It's not about just like, oh, look at my six pack. No, like, it's about like people in this world want to get a car wash every week, but like, what are you doing to take care of your body? You know what I mean? Like, yes, work's important. Yes, taking your kids to practices, all that stuff is important. But if you're not taking care of your own engine, your own body, everything else is going to fail later. So many of us men are dying in our 60s and 50s and even late 40s at this point. I mean, especially after all the vaccines and all that stuff, like people are croaking out of nowhere. We only get one life. We don't know what the afterlife is like. It's you got to make the best out of what you have. And the biggest legacy is leading by example and setting a great example for your kids before you leave this earth. And if you're going to Dunkin' Donuts every day, you got to change your life because before you know it, you're going to have blood pressure medication. Then you're going to have a whole bag of medications like one of my family members. And you're going to just be relying yourself on all these medications, or these doctors are going to experiment with you on medications that they're not really proven yet. It's just something new. And then out of nowhere, your internal bleeding or something else happens to you. But these exploratory pills, it's not worth it. It's so simple to just do a 5-minute walk every morning, 10 push-ups when you first get out of bed, anything, cold shower, anything that's uncomfortable, just get it going. Instead of going to lunch every day and eating out, make your own food. The most healthy food is going to come from your house because you don't know what else they're making with these like cheap mayonnaises or oils that they buy in bulk, and then ends up being in your body and you don't even know it, but it tastes good.
Yeah, actually, and especially here in the U.S., and I don't know, maybe things will be a little bit different moving forward now that we got
Sounds like it will.
RFK Jr. Kind of running point for the Department
Yeah.
of Health and Human Services. But when I was in Europe, Daniel, and like I was getting things like burgers and pizzas and stuff like that, but the way that everything was prepared, I could tell that it was all just really, really clean stuff. Like, I will eat like a burger and a pizza and I don't feel bloated and stuff like I would do if I were to probably get the same thing here stateside.
Yeah.
And and I hear like similar things too, where like, other people who travel to places like Europe where they have a lot more strict regulations as far as like,
Yeah.
how food is sourced and how food is processed and everything like that. And I think there was even some companies that are American companies that will deliberately use like less ingredients for the stuff that they sell and distribute in Europe versus what they distribute here in the US. So I hear other stories from people who travel to Europe and they like lose weight just by being there for like a week and they're pretty much eating like the same kinds of foods. But it's
Yeah.
just the quality of the foods that they're eating is just so much better. So
Yeah.
it's just so here it can be done, but it does involve a good amount of being deliberate and intentional and making stuff from scratch in your kitchen versus again just always trying to just go through the side of convenience and rolling through a fast food line.
Yeah, well, McDonald's and stuff when we grew up was the food was cooked in beef tallow, which is way more
Right.
healthy than all these seed oils that they use because seed oils is more affordable. Whatever it is, it all comes down to the dollar, and we're just these little little puzzle pieces, everyone in the world. I mean, you go by Chick-fil-A, you go by McDonald's, these drive-throughs are full. Like America is lazy as hell. And think about it. Like just recently, they were thinking about there might be like another war happening. Like people are going to be recruited at a young age to be soldiers. Like we're not ready. Um, we're done. Like, I don't think we would really be able to survive with the way that America is going on. I mean, I don't see any other countries um, being like allowing people to believe the dad bod is allowed and that their wife is truly attracted to it. Like it's not normal. Like they even make shirts that are bigger in the front to condition these men to hide it. Um, it's just very sad. America is down the drain right now with that. But I think with the route that it's going, I think we're going the right direction.
Yeah, I think I was reading a couple of things back when Russia first invaded Ukraine. A lot of franchises started pulling and closing like their stores in Russia. Like McDonald's started closing locations in Russia, and I think it was websites like Pornhub's like was not offering streaming to Russia like as well. I haven't really substantiated these, but if that were the case, pretty soon we're going to have a generation of Russian fighters who haven't been bogged down by heavily processed fast food and whose minds haven't been polluted with a bunch of smut. And so I'm
Mm.
thinking, I don't want to fight those guys. Like
Yeah.
those guys sound dangerous to me,
Yeah.
growing up without polluting their minds and their bodies that way.
Yeah. And just their family and wanting to make their family proud. And I mean, think about like the samurais back in the day, right? Like just that pride that they had for their family and the samurai lifestyle is just, I wouldn't want to mess with anybody like that. It's so serious, like over here to be like, man, I'm trying to watch my Netflix show. Like, you kind of come to my house right now. They're not ready, man. America's got to wake up, but that's the whole purpose of like, I feel like my purpose really is just to help men and dads out there just realize that we get one life and we want to lead our kids by example. And the best way to do that is to challenge ourselves every day and keep ourselves accountable and do something hard every couple months. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, speaking of which, that's very much what you've been doing as of late as a hybrid athlete. And when did you kind of sort of start branching off into that? Like, I know you've done some DEKA stuff, you've done some HYROX, and you've done a few other things here and there as well,
Yeah.
which we'll kind of break down what those all entail. But first off, though, is like, yeah, how'd you kind of sort of find yourself branching into
Yeah.
that side of your athletic journey?
Well, my story that I mentioned on my podcast in the beginning is how I lost myself and gained over 40 pounds when I got domesticated and everything. But I played 4.5 years of minor league ice hockey all over the country. And that was my image since I was 3.5 years old. Hockey player Dan, hockey player. It was simple. And then I met my wife in college and we kept in touch during when I played and we were boyfriend girlfriend. And then I had the idea that maybe the next level is for me to play overseas. And she kind of was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be here for that. So I kind of had a decision to make, and I chose her over continuing to play. But I felt like I was kind of played my best years, right? And I, from that moment, every life became like Dan with mortgage. And like, okay, how do we get this money? I was doing personal training and then I got a hockey director job of a hockey rink in New Hampshire. And it still wasn't paying the money, but I was given high effort, just like I was in hockey, but the money was like this. And like, how do we pay for all these bills and all this stuff? And then eventually I found physician recruiting and that became my life. Like I was first man in the office. My goal was to be the first car in the parking lot, the last one to leave. So it was like 7 to 7. And that's when I finally made six figures. Um, I was third in the company, billing $5 million a year, helping ER doctors get jobs. And it was great. And then, you know, everything else wasn't great internally because I was out late playing hockey or at a hockey league or something. I was drinking beers. I was throwing parties. My internal health was not healthy. We weren't really having balanced meals. We weren't working out regularly. I couldn't even run more than a mile at that time. My wife was a gazelle, and I was like, I can't run any farther. Where are we going? So now I run all the time. But shortly after that, we moved to Florida, and then I had a lot of stress happen because I was trying to find new jobs, and it just wasn't the same. I went from being a top guy to trying to earn my stripes in a different environment. And it wasn't my type of things. That's why I started my own company. That was even more stress starting a company with no capital, which is crazy. And then finally, I made my first placement like a year later. That was really good money. And then I was like, all right, I can actually do this. Let's do this. If I could do it once, I could do it twice. Um, and then ever since 2007, 2018, we've been just growing in the company. But in that time, when I was in the struggle of starting the company, I call it the trenches, man, because I was living on coffee. I was living on no sleep. I knew whatever I made, my kids were going to be able to eat food or not eat food. And we got rid of one car. We got to a little unit apartment near the beach in St. Augustine. Money was low, and then finally money was flowing. And then we got another house in Palm Coast, Florida, and at that time, now the money was flowing a little bit, and I was like, well, this isn't my life. I was like athletic. I was challenging myself, like playing beer league hockey late at night. It's great, but these guys want to hurt me. Like it's just like I don't know what my purpose is. And then I was late night watching a YouTube video, and I saw this Spartan race, and I'm watching it till 3:30 in the morning, and I'm like, wow, like these guys are like running and in their mud and they're being videoed. And like, maybe I could do something like this one day. I was like, dude, you don't run. uh, so I found David Goggins, and I started just running every day. No purpose, terrible form, just 2 miles every day. Thought that was a shiznick, right? Just run fast 2 miles every day. And then my knee started hurting a little bit, and something didn't add up. And then finally, I found these guys that do obstacle course racing after I did a race just to see how I did on an open race, not a competitive race. And it was Get a Core Fitness. They said, come on down. And ever since I was hooked. And then that's when I realized I could train for something um, and not be the worst out there. In my first competitive race, man, I was hyped mentally. But they said go and I was running, I'd go over these hay bales, like these big hay things, and jump over them. And I was like, the first one, I was like, yeah. The second one, I was like, that's fucking tired, man. The third one, I was like, oh crap, I got kicked in the head by a guy crossing over. And I was like, I sat there for a second, like, I don't know if this is for me. But then I was like, no, man, you've been training. Let's just do it. And I finished, did not do well. But finishing was something that was huge because now I knew I accomplished something that um I haven't felt that way since my last pro game. And that's at that moment I just started training and training, researching how to train for OCR. Before you know it, some medals happen, some podiums happen. And then one of my advisors, Heidi Williams, said like you should get into hybrid racing because you're stronger than like these skinny former college runners that are doing obstacle course races, which made sense because I have like a bigger torso and stuff like that, and bigger legs and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, I'll give it a try. And then flew to New York City and hit the podium. And then I flew to LA, hit the podium for HYROX. And I was hooked. And then DEKA happened, and I forgot about HYROX. And then I became a world champion runner up for my age group for DEKA Strong in Atlantic City that year. So that was really huge. And then that's when the podcast was created after that, just because I felt like I hit something big and I was kind of lost at that moment. It's like, what do I do now? And that's the Competitive Edge podcast was created.
Right on. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what we're referring to when we talk about DEKA and HYROX, I guess a good way we can describe it, well, like you said, it's hybrid racing. It's
Yeah.
running with some exercises thrown in there too. Unlike, let's say, a marathon where you're just running, or CrossFit where you're just doing exercises, you're blending the two. Um, so I don't know a whole lot about DEKA, so maybe you can help me fill some gaps there. But
Yeah.
basically, with what HYROX is, and HYROX, I believe it originates in the UK, if I do recall. So,
Yep.
because I know like a lot of the measurements are in metric. So it's like you run a kilometer, you do an exercise, you run another kilometer, and you do that for 8 rounds effectively. So in the
Correct.
end, you run 8K, 8 kilometers, which is about 5 miles, and you do 8 different exercises along the way. And
Yeah.
so getting ready for HYROX, what's interesting about HYROX is that you know exactly what's expected of you. You know exactly what the task is that you roll into. So how did you kind of feel about preparing for that? Because like different from OCR races, you know what some of the obstacles are, but you don't know exactly where they're positioned along the course. Like course details aren't really
Yeah.
given up until like race time. So
Mhm.
you just got to just be as versatile as you possibly can. But HYROX, you know the drill. You know what's going to be expected of you on race day. So
Yeah.
how'd you kind of feel about preparing for HYROX for the first time?
I think the biggest common mistake that I fell into was I just kept practicing the stations, right? Um, it's a running race, and I learned that the hard way, because you're every single time you run, the laps kind of get slower and slower when if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have that base or your aerobic base built. I think I was talking to you, I forget who, but like just basically like you have to run. You got to running is the most important piece of that race. And if you want to do like 20 wall balls a day and then 2 weeks later do 30 ball balls a day and then keep going all the way up to 100, and eventually you'll have 100 a day. I've done that before where I've done 100 a day for like 25 days or in a row. And I was like, all right, I gotta take a break. But it's worth it because when you're dead and you're tired and you're in the the pain cave, like you you have nothing left. But if you trust yourself in your training, that I truly believe that you build trust in training, you build confidence in training. And that's sometimes it allows you to just do what you do because no matter who you are, you're going to be nervous at the start line. I'm nervous at the start line, but then once it starts flowing, you just remember like I worked on this. I've done this. Let's do it. Like put it to work now. Um, so training for your first HYROX race is just realizing that the first race is just a baseline. Do what you can, but don't beat yourself at the end. Beat up yourself at the end. You'll get all your stats at the end. It's on the website. You can get every single stat that you need, and you'll realize what your weakest points are, and now you know what to work on. So don't get so angry that you didn't hit the podium the first time. If you did, great, but that's not the goal. Your goal is just to get your feet wet, learn what your weak points are and what you need to work on.
And I would also dare say it's never too late to start doing these things too. A buddy of mine posted this story the other day on Instagram, and I reposted it. He's also a hybrid athlete, and it was two women that were doing the pairs competition, and
Yep.
I
Doubles.
think doubles. Yes, thank you. And one of the women was 66 years old, and the other one was 72 years old, and they
Huh.
completed HYROX together. And so, like I said, like they ran a total of 5 miles. And they
Yes.
also did 8 exercises along the way, and in their late 60s and early 70s. And now that's exciting right there.
Yeah.
So,
Fitness
and
for
and
everybody.
yeah, and so now I'm pretty sure they went in there not with the expectations that they were going to make it on the podium or anything, but I think they just wanted to challenge themselves just to do it and just have fun. Frankly,
Yeah.
too. I mean, that's another thing I think we should keep in mind about fitness is that fitness, yes, it's tough and it could be a suffer fest at times, but man, it's just no one ever regrets doing it though.
Yep.
They just have a blast and they feel so good at the end. You get all that those endorphins as a
Yeah.
result of it.
It absolutely sucks. But when you
Mhm.
finish, it's a remarkable feeling when you finish. And um, I think you go in stages. You know, when you first start the HYROX race or DEKA race, whatever it is, or OCR, you're just happy that you finished. The next stage after that is like um, you're in the top 10, and then after that, you're like wow, I could be close to the podium. I'm fourth in my age group, and then you're like boom, then you hit the podium, and then there until you hit the podium that time frame between being grateful and being the podium, it's we're really hard on ourselves. It's just natural human behavior. I've done it where like the fun didn't exist because I just wanted to be on that podium. But then like once you're on it, it's like I'm like my first big check in my company. Like once you got it, it's like, all right, let's get some more. But now you're not beating yourself up so much anymore. Um, so if I could do it all over again, I'd probably just be a little nicer to myself. Because I think there was a time my wife was like, "Why are you doing it? Why are you paying for these races if you're not having fun?" And there's a lot of comparisonitis. There's a lot of like, "Hey, Johnny's running this much in Strava," or he runs better, or I don't run better. He's stronger than me, but I'm stronger in grip, or whatever it is. There's always some kind of thing, but I think the more I've raced, the more I gave myself grace. And I focus more on the good things that happened that race versus the things that didn't go well. Um, and I think that's it. And then also trusting that I had the ability to dissect what I messed up on and how can I fix it. So
Right. I mean, even though these are competitive races, I mean, like everyone's times are posted at the end of it, and you definitely kind of
yeah,
want to see where fall amongst your peers and everything like that.
yeah,
But of course, I always say, like, you're the greatest competitor that you should be fighting against is who you were yesterday, and
yeah,
sometimes that competitor could even just be things like fear and self
yeah,
doubt and maybe even insecurity. Like, I mean, it's a huge victory, like I would say, for a lot of people who go into the gym the first time when maybe they were feeling insecure, thinking that people were going to look at them and judge them, but they still went anyway. It's just
oh yeah,
like that's a good fear, or that's a good accomplishment in and of itself. When I did some CrossFit when I was living abroad a few years ago, and there was this girl that was doing the WOD there, and she ended up coming last in everything. You know, she finished last on the runs. She had like the lowest times, the lowest scores, and everything like that. But I still went to her at the end of it, and I said, "Hey, good workout today out there today. Good job." But
yes,
she was feeling kind of defeated, Daniel, because she placed last and everything. But I'm like, well, you still outlapped and beat everyone who stayed home on the couch today. So
yeah.
give yourself some props for that.
Yeah, I've done that before too. Caesar, that's in our fitness group. I met him in Titusville, and we both did the rock, and he was kind of down and out, like seeing what number I got versus what his number was. And I was just like, hey man, like just keep in touch, add me on Instagram. I'll try to share whatever I've learned because I'm not God's gift, but I mean, I feel like I'm a gift to myself, um, but to be honest, I'm not like the best out there right now. But there's a lot of things I've learned from watching YouTube videos, practicing, videoing myself. There's so much stuff I've done that people don't realize that you do. For example, like your archaeology career or anything like that, people don't realize the extra things that you do that they wouldn't assume that you do. Um, a lot of the workouts that we do, we don't post on the internet. A lot of people don't even know they happened at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that. So, my goal was just to help Caesar that day and other people that I run into that are down and out. And I try to like give some, sharing's caring, man. It's all about an energy exchange. And if you have a gift to share that you've learned something, don't hold it to yourself, help other people. And I think that can help you be a better person. And I think that's like giving is really important to me. Um, and just sharing with the world. And I think there's a lot of men and dads that are out there that feel like they're alone. And I've been there, and that's the whole purpose of the show and whatever else I do in the future, and grow the podcast brand. That's the goal.
Absolutely. So, what do you got on the horizon? I know you're going to be coming out to my neck of the woods in March, and you and I are going to be going to HYROX over in Houston pretty soon. But do you have anything else slated for 2025?
I'm up in the air, man. I really want to see where I go with this DEKA World Championship in December. Racing 4 races. I think I'm like fourth in the DEKA Strong Ruck, and then they're putting out the standings soon because we don't know who's coming. But I'm definitely in the top 8 for DEKA Mile, top 6 for uh No, top 8 for DEKA Fit. DEKA Mile, I think I'm top 6. So we don't know who's coming and who is coming. So I could be like top 3. Who knows? But the goal is to see what I can win. Um, and there's 4 races in 3 days with a back have 31-pound backpack on my back for 3 of the races. The one race is a team race. Um, so I'm just praying to the world to allow me to have as much energy as possible to just do what I do and just lay it all out there, and show the world and myself what I could do. From there, I'm going to decide what I want to do for 2025. I might jump back into obstacle course racing, or I might focus just on HYROX, or I might just focus on DEKA Ruck again. So it really depends on what I can gather from that event.
All right, right on. And like I said, man, I intended to feature you at High Rocks in March, so let's do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
and of course, I say that just to make sure I hold myself accountable to my training more than anything else. So,
absolutely, and hit me up, man. I mean, I was doing HYROX before like tons of US people were doing it. Like I just got hooked right away, when I saw it online. And I just did the workouts I found online almost every day. Didn't know what I was doing. I wish I ran more, but running is the biggest thing. And advice I told Caesar is, dude, just run zone 2 for about like 4 months for at least an hour, hour and a half, whatever you got to do, nice and slow, and just build that aerobic capacity. And then just do these small little medcons of the stations, like once a week. Don't kill yourself, but the wall balls, whatever you think is your weakest link, that's what you need to be mixing in. So,
yeah, for me right now, it's the burpee broad jumps.
well, the race doesn't start until the burpee broad jumps. I swear, I think I've seen Jesus a couple times halfway through that. I'm not kidding. At that moment, burpee broad jumps can either take your soul or you can commit to dying, basically.
Hmm.
And you have to commit and realize that your body will heal, your body will survive. Um, and there's been there's time I almost like went down and almost puked in my mouth. Like it was just like you just got to give everything you got, and then after that, I believe is the rower. That's where you get to breathe and you get to sit down and take a breath and you could take a gel, put a salt tablet in or something just to regain yourself. And then the race starts again.
All right, man. All right. Well, as we start winding down, let's just take a couple of minutes for you to tell us a little bit more about your podcast. Like you said, you are the host of the Competitive Edge podcast, and I've had the privilege to be a guest on your show, and you've had many other amazing guests that have come on as well. So yeah, so just give us a little bit of a synopsis on your show, and where can we tune in?
Yeah. So the show is for dad athletes that are in pursuit of a physical journey or endeavor. It could be anything. It could be racing. It could be losing weight. It could be whatever you're committed to be a better dad, that you burn the boats to do it. Um, but you're also juggling parenthood. You're juggling being married. You're juggling work. You're juggling making more money, paying bills and everything. But you're still committed to growing as an athlete, and learning from other dads that are successfully or almost successfully doing it, because no one's perfect. There's no perfect balance, but if we can learn tips and hacks from other men other than just me, I think we all become better. I know I'm on episode like 80, but I've only posted 75 of them. I've learned so much personally. I've become such a better man since starting this podcast. And so many people, men are quiet. They won't tell you they're listening, but I see the numbers. They are listening. And I think the purpose of the show is just really to relate to real conversation and just learn from other people, so you can take those things and grow as a man, and try new things to be better.
All right, and I'll leave links in the show notes for this episode, or if we got some guys that are watching us talk on YouTube, links will be down in the description below. They can go there and click away and tune in there. All right. Well, Now, I got a couple more final standard questions for you, Daniel, that I ask all my guests towards the end of the show. And one of the things I like to ask my guests to do is to issue a challenge to our listeners because stories, information, insights can only take our listeners and our viewers so far. They themselves have to follow up with action once they're done listening or watching this episode. So, with that, what challenge would you issue to our listeners and our viewers today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
So if you are a parent, the first thing I would do is to make sure you pick up your child regardless of their size, when they wake up, and just tell them that you love them. And, um, at the end of the day, do the same thing and ask them how their day was. Number two, is put yourself first. You have to wake up before your kids. Do it. If it's 5 minutes before, I know some friends jump on the train at 5 a.m. in the morning. Whatever. Until you get a new job, you got to wake up earlier and take care of yourself, and take care of yourself first, because once you feed yourself, you fill your cup, you're going to be able to fill other people's cup naturally, with the most genuine approach possible. So when someone approaches you at work with trouble, you're going to be able to handle that with grace, because you took care of yourself. And I guess the biggest challenge I would say is just habits are grown in 21 days. So if you can choose something like 100 push-ups a day or 30 pull-ups a day, or squatting on a wall, whatever that is, or running 1 mile a day for 21 days, do it. Keep it simple. Do something small. Like there's a gentleman that just lost a family member, part of our group, and he lost himself a little bit. He's slowly coming back. I've been trying to coach him in some messages, and he's coming back. And the key is to start small and give yourself some grace. You're not going to be exactly where you were before. But if you can at least start small and then every 2 weeks go up and go up, that's the biggest challenge I have for 21 days.
All right, right on. Good stuff, man. All right, so what I have next for you is my final three. Again, these are three. I like to think that they're fun questions that all my guests get asked at the end of the show. So, of course, you're going to get asked these as well. And the first of these three questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
Costa Rica,
That was easy.
absolutely amazing. Nothing like it. It was just a bliss out there, and the howling monkeys, hiking volcanoes. It was awesome. Waterfalls.
I'm trying to remember if anyone else has brought up Costa Rica. That might actually be a first, Daniel. If someone did say Costa Rica as an answer to this question, it was probably very early on, and I can't remember. So I'm going to give it to you. So far we are 1 for 1 for original answers to these questions, but I got a couple more for you. And the next question in this final three is, what is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
Hmm. Bucket list yet to do. Basically grow my passion project of my podcast and leading men to be better and dads to be better, and pulling less away, like not relying on my physician recruiting business as much. That's really the ultimate bucket list, to allow me to have, to enjoy more what I'm doing by helping other people versus just trying to make money from my family.
Okay, so more of that then, right? Awesome. And, another original answer. I mean, we've had some along the lines of entrepreneurship as well, but,
Yeah.
yours is unique. So there we go. 2 for 2 for original answers. But I got one final question for you, and this is a two-parter. What is your favorite animal, and have you seen this animal in the wild?
So it's absolutely an eagle or a hawk. I I know that when I'm going in the right direction in my life, I see hawks. There was a time I kind of lost myself a little bit, and I found myself again, and literally the same run, same route. I was seeing this different hawk, another hawk, a different hawk, and they will allow me to be as close as like as close as that chair behind me. They've literally allowed me to be in the back of them and not worry about me being there. It sounds a little nuts. I've made some podcast episodes about it, but like they're like literally fly that way and then fly right over me. Like it's just it's just I know I'm going the right direction. And this happened initially when my dog passed away. When I handled my my own personal psychiatry counseling was running. I would just run, and I would feel the emotions. And being a dad out there, you cannot cry in front of your kids and stuff like that. But I would embrace all the emotion. And when I was running, I saw Hawk, and I was talking to my dog through the Hawk, and ever since I just had a connection. And I see them when I'm driving. I'm that guy that's like, "There's a Hawk over there," and I find it remarkable what they do. And I made an episode on once a eagle, bald eagle, turns 40, they have a choice to make. They have to pluck out their nails and they have to break their beak off so it all can grow all over again and go through all that excruciating pain to have another life. Because if they don't have a sharp beak and they don't have sharp talons, they can't hunt, which means they can die.
And it
So
was the
we're all
same thing
40.
with their feathers, right? They have to like
Yeah,
rip
you have to
out all
pluck
their
them
old
out.
feathers, otherwise they won't be able
Exactly.
to fly again.
But it's just like us at 40 years old, right? We are restarted, like we have a rebirth basically. And that's why I love that animal. But I don't know what it is lately. The jaguar's been like calling me out lately. I don't know what it is. It's if you like look at my Instagram like magnifying thing, it's all like wild animals hunting and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say I follow nature as metal, so I keep seeing all that stuff like
Yeah.
on my feed. It's all like really really cool. Now the hawk has come up before, but the eagle has not. So since you said eagle before hawk, I'll give this one to you as well. So we are
Nice.
we are 3 for 3 for original
Oh yeah.
answers to these questions. Yeah, actually, I think that was one of my favorite solo casts that you did was when you talked about the eagle and pretty much having to go through this very 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 painful ordeal in order to
Yeah.
basically live a
I
whole
love
like
that one.
another life, and it's just like endure or die is basically what they have to go through. But and I found it interesting. I didn't realize eagles had such a long potential lifespan like
Me
that.
either. Absolutely remarkable. I mean, to be honest, I could do more solo casts if I start this passion project a little bit more. It's just we only get so much time, I either have to drop racing or I have to drop something else to get more time. But right now we're good. We're interviewing on Tuesdays, we're publishing on Sundays. We'll keep that rhythm for now.
All right, awesome, man. So, Daniel, that's it. That's all the questions that I have for you tonight. But before we call it a day here, let's just recap how our listeners and viewers can connect with you. So, website, social media accounts. What do you got for us?
Yeah, just follow at Daniel Jason Hickman. The podcast is the Competitive Edge podcast. There's a couple more out there, so you might want to put Competitive Edge podcast, fatherhood, fitness, focus, whatever that is. You can find me there. You can email me at competitiveedge2023 at gmail.com if you want to come on the show or know someone that you want to recommend. That's really it. Appreciate it.
All right. And like I said, I'll leave everything linked up in the show notes for this episode. Or if we got viewers watching the interview on YouTube, they'll find it down in the description below. So it'll be right there for them to go click away and find everything. All right. Well,
Awesome.
Daniel, I want to thank you very much for taking the time for joining me today. It's been great to connect with you as of late. And again, I really appreciate you having me on the show. I've really enjoyed our conversations and
Yeah.
your insights and everything like that. So thanks so much for taking time for joining me tonight. This has been great, man.
Thank you, man. You're a well put gentleman, and I love it that you're traveling the world, doing what you got to do, and spreading your message. So keep it going.
All right. Right on, man.